and we will get this party started. So welcome everybody officially. My name is Crystal. I'm a coordinator from the California Community Colleges Success Network, or 3CSN. That is a professional learning organization that's funded out of the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office. And our goal in life is to create opportunities for educators all across the state and beyond to learn, to network, to connect, and to share ideas. And when we say educator, we don't just mean faculty members here, right? We're talking about peer educators, and that includes SI leaders, tutors, that includes peer mentors. It also includes our faculty, friends, classified staff, administrators, anybody who's working to help educate students. So we're super, super happy that you're here. Welcome aboard. Our goal for today is, just like every Friday, is to explore one topic that's related to peer education or learning assistance. So how do we build an identity? How do we build a community in peer education? How do we start learning from each other? And how do we connect so that we know where to go when we're stuck? And where do we go to share our experiences? So every week at 3 p.m. on Friday, we take over the 3CSN airwaves and talk about a different topic related to peer education. And then every week, a different college or a different set of presenters is highlighted. So sometimes we have peer educators, sometimes faculty, sometimes staff. We've got lots of folks from lots of different places. So today, I am super, super happy to introduce a couple of our colleagues from Southern California. We have Chase from West LA and Giselle from Pasadena, who's going to talk about something that's near and dear to all of our hearts, which is how to survive when we don't have as many resources as we would like to have, the eternal struggle. So with that, I'm going to turn it over, and I'll interrupt just towards the end, right at like 3:58, just in case anybody has to leave at 4, but we hope that most of you can stay until 4:30 for the conversation part of this. So take it away, Chase and Giselle.
Okay, thank you so much, Crystal. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's so great to see so many attendees, and I'm really, really looking forward to the discussion that we're gonna have today. I was just on the second slide. I backed up just to remind everyone of the sort of title or theme for today. We're titling it "Doing More with Less: Maintaining Successful Peer Educator Programs with Limited Resources." So pretty self-explanatory here. But thinking back when I was first talking to Crystal about doing this, and when Giselle and I were planning, we wanted to think of something that was super realistic, something that was relatable not only from like a coordinator side, like Giselle and I sort of doing supervision, but also on the sort of provider side or the tutor side as well. So today we're going to do some talking, some sharing, some learning. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we already shared our name, our college, and our role in the chat, but just in case you missed it or you came in a little bit late, if you wouldn't mind doing that, it's really interesting to see who is here and who's being represented at today's whatever we want to call this. But I'm going to go ahead and move to the third slide, and I think Giselle is just going to take us through this.
All right, so welcome everyone. We're so excited to have you here. I just wanted to go over how you can participate today. So there are 3 different ways that you can participate. I feel like many of us are used to this Zoom world that we live in now. But just as a reminder, the first way that you can participate at any time is using chat. So you can type in the chat to share ideas, respond to questions, offer alternatives, share experience, etc. So at any time you'd like to share, please use the chat. We also have another option, which is to raise your hand and speak. So whenever you'd like to share, you can raise your Zoom hand, and Chase and I will then call on you, and we'll invite you to unmute yourself and share. We will have specific share out times during this presentation, so keep that in mind. We also have the reactions on Zoom. So I've seen a few people using them already. So you can use the reaction buttons, the thumbs up, the heart, or the celebration. They help us all connect. And we have this little image on the slide to show how you can interact. So if you just find that small reactions button on your Zoom, I see all these popping up now, you can use these reactions, and you can also click on the 3 dots to use different emojis in order to express yourself.
Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, before we get into what we're going to talk about today, just a quick few community agreements. So obviously today we're going to do a little bit of reading, more so talking, reflecting, and hopefully a lot of sharing of ideas and strategies. We're going to ask you to draw on your experience and to share that. Obviously, asking everyone to commit to small incremental changes in our practice, stuff that we're going to talk about today. Hopefully you can take with you and put into practice. I've already sort of said this a few times, but just be ready to share, model your takeaways, and provide reflection for others. Giving appreciative feedback, whether that's verbal in the chat with our little reaction buttons, that always helps. Yeah, using the chat, and then finally just have fun and let's be open to some new ideas. I'm really looking forward to hearing from everyone here today. So moving on. We first, Giselle and I wanted to just introduce ourselves and introduce our center. So you had a little bit of context for how we put this together and what we're drawing from. My name is Chase Selby. I'm the Learning Center Director at West LA College. So one of the 9 community colleges in the LA Community College District. The Learning Center at West serves all subject tutoring. So some other centers might specifically focus on math tutoring or writing tutoring. Our center provides all of that under one umbrella. We mostly focus on writing, math, and science. We also do employ some tutors that will do computer science or Spanish or some of the other subjects that students come to us with needing assistance with. For fall 2021, we're offering a hybrid model, or offering hybrid services with mostly remote tutoring, a lot more robust online tutoring as far as hours and subjects go, but we do have some limited on-site or in-person tutoring as well in our center. And then I'll pass it to Giselle.
Hi, everyone. So just a quick introduction of myself and my school. My name is Giselle Miralles, and I work at Pasadena City College as an English Writing Center Support Faculty. That's my official title, but essentially I help coordinate the Writing Center at Pasadena. So like I said, I am part of the Writing Support Center. Our primary demographic is from English. That's where we get the most students, but we do provide tutoring for any writing subject. So that could be a lab report, that could be a personal statement, PIQ responses. We get all of those types of things in our center. Currently, we're offering hybrid services with remote tutoring and in-person tutoring. We do offer synchronous remote tutoring, so tutoring over Zoom. And then we do also offer the service called email consultations. So students are able to email in their paper and receive feedback within 2 days. And we've gone through great lengths to make sure that that process isn't just editing, and it's a feedback type of service. And we also provide in-person tutoring. So ours is not super limited. We aren't as open as we usually are, but we're still open a good amount of the day. So Monday through Thursday is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's been a big change for us. And then Fridays as well, 9 to 2. So we are open for both services.
Great. So as we move forward, we're actually going to jump right in with a discussion question. I think Giselle is also going to take us through this slide as well.
Yes. So with this discussion question, we are asking, what are the various expectations that are placed upon you, either from students, faculty, administration, etc., when providing or coordinating learning assistance/tutoring? So we want you to reflect on this question. And the way that we're going to start this reflection is by using a Google Doc. So instead of having breakout rooms, we're just going to let all of us self-reflect on the kinds of expectations that are placed on us and how we manage them when we are providing tutoring or coordination of tutoring. So the link should be provided in the chat. And once you get that link, go ahead and click on it, and you'll be taken to a Google Doc. On that Google Doc, you'll see the first question, the discussion question. Please be sure to choose a bullet point that is not being used. So what I would recommend is to try skipping every other bullet point so that you're not writing or erasing anyone else's contributions. And this is completely anonymous. You're free to add any indicators of where you're from, but we want to respect anyone who doesn't want to essentially if they want to keep their feedback anonymous, we invite you to be open and honest and share with us so that we can discuss these things. So go ahead and take about 5 to 7 minutes to just self-reflect on that Google Doc. If you're having any issues accessing the Google Doc, please let us know. Otherwise, you can also just share with us verbally when we come back to reflect, or you can also provide any responses in the chat. So I'm just going to pause here and then give you all about 5 to 7 minutes to enter your responses in the Google Doc. Alrighty, so I just want to bring us all back together. Please continue typing if there's other things you'd like to share. You can continue to do so. I also encourage you to read over so many of these great things people have been adding to the Google document. But before I read some of them, I just wanted to see, did anyone want to verbally share? No pressure. I just wanted to see if anyone wanted to share before I start going through these.
Oh, I can share. So a big expectation from our learning center, like over at Pierce, is that, we're not here to give the answers to the students. We're here to help the students become better learners based on our own experience as students. Like we go from student to tutor, and as tutors, we're helping our tutees become better students.
Thank you, Madushi. Yes, that is something that we also do. I think that's a very universal tutoring pedagogy thing where we all want students to become independent learners and we don't want to give answers. But I know that sometimes students don't really understand that sort of rhetoric. So they get frustrated, right? Because they're like, I just want you to help me with the answer. But what I found has helped me and other tutors is letting the student know the pedagogy, like being clear about that. So instead of making it a mystery of why you're answering in questions to their questions, right? Letting them know that the reason why I can't give you answers is because I want you to develop these skills and so that you can do it on your own when I'm not around. Like this is something that we all do, just letting students know why. And then I always tell the tutors, worst case scenario, blame me and say, I'm not allowed to because my supervisor says so, right? So those are some strategies I found have worked. But thank you for sharing, Madushi. Did anyone else want to share verbally? Yes, Crystal, please.
Yeah, I'll share that. I just think that from a coordinator's perspective, it's just been really challenging in a post-COVID environment to provide tutoring in both modalities, both online and in person, without additional staff or tutoring hours. So, as tutors go back even more face-to-face in the spring semester, what's going to be their expectation, providing both online and in-person services, and how we provide the safety and support for that as well with the same budget that we have before. So that's not insurmountable, but definitely something that is a head scratcher for us right now.
Thank you, Crystal, from sharing from the indirect student support perspective. Yes, I also have that worry of how am I going to sustain these two services because we are open for longer hours. But that's why we are finding ways to be creative and having tutors that are working in the center, also tutoring on Zoom. But that also brings up its own issues of, are we asking tutors to do too much? But I do want to read some of these before we move on. So someone said we sometimes are expected to create additional materials without additional pay for that time. We also often find ourselves expecting to know all the answers to all the things, self-expectation. Someone wrote, to know the material, sometimes there's pressure to prepare outside of paid time. So another someone expressing concern about working outside of work hours, being patient even if students are not understanding after explaining multiple times. Yes, that is hard because students have multiple learning styles and we have tutoring styles, so we have to adjust and it can get frustrating. Projects continue to be added to my workload as if I have nothing else to do, and the assumption that I know what to do with little instruction, guidance, or direction, lack of proper training and the use of platforms platforms and continuous changes to my work tasks, not enough staff support to complete work responsibilities. Sorry, I saw that you're still typing within the workday, requiring me to consistently work overtime without pay. That is very frustrating. I'm sorry to whoever wrote that. Hopefully we can think of ways to combat these things. Believe in student success by giving useful resources, sharing positivity only. I love that. Helping students not only with academics, but with the challenges of being a student and a human right now in the world. Yes, we're not trained to do this, but it's part of the work. It is absolutely part of the work. You are human. The tutors, the students you tutor are human. And learning how to manage those conversations within a tutoring session can be very difficult. But please, there's so many great things here. Please, if everyone read through them. But we are going to move on to the next question, which Chase will be handling.
Yeah, so I was thinking about stopping the share here, going back to the slideshow, just to show a slide that represents or that presents the question that's literally right below. So to save us all a little bit of, to not get us motion sick, let's just not even go back to the slide right now, because the next slide actually presents this follow-up question, like I said. So thinking back to the expectation that you wrote there or that you were thinking about, we were curious in what ways do you manage these expectations, the expectations that are placed upon you when trying to meet the demands of your center. So again, I'm really curious to hear, from the tutor perspective, from my coordinator perspective, and I know some of the responses above kind of hinted at some of these strategies that we use. But for this follow-up question, we're not going to give quite as much time, but we will take a couple minutes just in silence here to get down our thoughts. And again, once we've done that, we'll bring it back to have anyone share verbally, or if not, I can read some of these responses out loud. So again, yeah, if you're still typing on the document, feel free to continue typing as we begin talking. But question number 2, right, was just a follow-up question that asked, in what ways do you manage these expectations, the expectations that are placed upon you while trying to meet the demands of your center? So just like Giselle did, before I sort of pick out some of the responses that were shared in the shared Google Doc, I was wondering if anyone would like to share verbally what they were thinking, what they wrote, on how they manage those expectations. Yeah, Lindsay.
I started saying no.
Yeah, and sometimes it's hard to say. So do
or like saying I do that. What's that again? Say it again.
Oh yeah, I was just asking you to continue. I'm really curious about this.
Yeah. So like saying no or advocating, like, if you would like me to do this, then I need XYZ, more time, a partner, something like that.
Thank you so much for sharing. If I can ask just a quick question, that saying no, it sounds like what you're referring to is saying no to maybe like a supervisor, right? That's asking you to take on some sort of responsibility, right? And that can be really difficult, right? When you're, kind of having to tell someone who, I know I struggle, right? When a dean asks me to do something, it's really hard to say no and really hard to set those boundaries.
Yeah, and even coworkers who are like, hey, can we have another meeting? It's like, well, can we not have it on Saturday, please? Thank you. So really anyone that I'm working with, yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for getting us started. That's such a important thing, saying no. Does anyone else want to offer how they manage expectations?
So from oh, sorry, go ahead, Anna.
Oh no, sorry.
No, I talk too much. Please, go ahead.
For me, it's the expectation that the student has to leave like learning something or changing something. And sometimes like I'll be with a student and like nothing really gets done because the student's not prepared or I can't answer a question, clarify a question as efficiently as I can. And so sometimes I just have to be like, okay, well, I did my best with what the situation that I, was given. So I can always tell the student to come see me again. I can research more or have the student tell them how to prepare for next time, whether they see me or not. But yeah, I think the expectation that like I have to the student has to leave with something is kind of hard as a tutor, like to deal with.
And do you feel like that's an expectation you're kind of like placing on yourself as someone that's providing tutoring, that like the student needs to leave having this huge like light bulb moment, or they've achieved everything that they wanted to achieve?
I think so. Yeah. I don't think it's ever been like explicitly told to me, like, oh, student has to leave with something, but I think it's just maybe us as educators that we want to help students, make them, you know, give them the most of their time. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Crystal responded to that in the chat, by saying it's such a good point. Our job is to help the student progress, not to meet some benchmark we have in mind. Yeah, that's such an important point. Thank you so much. And I think was it Madushi that was saying something?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say kind of similar to what Anna was saying in terms of like from like a tutor tutee perspective, just making it very clear what my role is and what I can do and what I can't do. Because I feel like when you're clear with that, it helps manage whatever expectations they might have for you. Because when you say it immediately, then it kind of like sets the tone for the session.
Brilliantly said. Thank you so much for that. And does anyone else, before we move on, want to share how they managed, just quickly over the mic? Yeah, Crystal.
I just want to just echo and thank, is it Anna or Anna? How do I say your name so I don't butcher?
Both is fine. Yes.
Which do you prefer?
Yeah, both is fine.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
Well, I just wanted to thank you again for that question or that comment. I was actually just before this workshop was working with a tutor who was struggling with this very sort of concept, right? Like the student wasn't progressing in the way that they had an expectation for them to progress. And it is really hard because we say out loud that like, it's okay, take every student where they are, it's all right if they don't meet those benchmarks. And yet, as Lindsay's saying in the chat, there really is this pressure, no matter how many times you say that, to help that student pass that class, get that A, finish that problem that they're working on, whatever it is. And so I just want to offer, maybe as a coordinator or supervisor's perspective, that we sort of walk the walk, if that's an appropriate term here. It's great to say to our peer educators that you help students wherever they are, and there's no benchmark, but what does that actually mean? How do we put that into practice? How do we talk about it? How do we practice it? All that stuff. So that's a good note for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Crystal. I'm not going to be able to get through every single comment that was made on this Google Doc, but I'm really loving everything I see here, and I encourage you, maybe on your own time after we leave, or maybe even during the 4 to 4:30 session, we can return back to some of these comments because they're so great. I'm seeing a lot of things about setting boundaries, and I think that is such an important thing, not only in our professional lives, but in our personal lives as well, right? And it's a skill that we have to practice. That can be uncomfortable, but it's so great. And then setting expectations, like personally, reflecting on accomplishments. All of these things shared are so valuable, and I thank all of you for sharing your thoughts here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop my share so I can go ahead and get back to the PowerPoint. So just give me one moment here. And hopefully we're all able to see my screen here as I go to the next slide that Giselle's going to take us through, that just sort of lays out some challenges that Giselle and I have observed.
All right, so some of these challenges will echo what some of you might have written in the Google Doc, so I just want to put that out there first. But these are some direct student support or tutor challenges that we have seen. So the first one is balancing the load that comes with tutoring and schooling. So we understand that you're students, but that you also need to tutor. So that might be difficult, right, to balance both of those. You also need to work online and on site simultaneously sometimes now. So that's also a new challenge. adapting to the constantly changing landscape of tutoring. So I know for the tutors at Pasadena, they've had to adapt to multiple modalities of tutoring quickly. Obviously, we try to train them as best as we can, but a lot of that is just the tutor's ability to adapt. So we're always grateful for that as coordinators. Students becoming too reliant on tutor or demanding of tutor's time. So during the session or ongoing, we saw a lot of that in the Google Doc. Calming students' frustrations with wait time or limited tutor availability. I think I saw some of that in the Google Doc as well. And then lastly, providing back-to-back sessions during a typical shift. I know sometimes you get busy and then you're providing all this tutoring back-to-back and you don't have a second to breathe. So these are some common challenges for tutors.
Great. So the next slide, I'm going to talk about some challenges that we face as like indirect student support, like on the coordinator or supervision side. But yeah, it was so great to see, you know, some of these challenges mentioned by the like learning assistance providers or the tutors that we have here. Because when Giselle and I were doing this, we were thinking back to like our days as tutors. But of course, right, there's so much that was added past this by you, those of you that are tutors that are here today. So thank you so much for that. So yeah, just some challenges from the supervision or the coordinator side. You know, making sure that there's ample coverage for our most popular courses. And sometimes those popular courses sort of shift. Of course, we're always going to need writing tutors, but you know, with things like AB 705, suddenly we needed a lot more statistics tutors than we previously had. Making sure that there's adequate coverage both online and on site when we're providing you know, services in both areas at the same time or even at different times. Just meeting the requests for embedded tutors or supplemental instruction for a wide range of courses. Sometimes we're approached by department or division chairs, by deans, with the request for embedded tutoring, which is a great thing, but obviously takes a lot of coordination on the back end to make sure it's a successful program. Making sure that our tutors are receiving training, both our new tutors and our continuing tutors, to make sure that we ensure effective practice. We want to make sure that the tutors are supported, that we're not just sort of throwing them out there and saying, kind of learn on the job. Of course, there's always going to be some degree of that, but there is going to need to be some training to make sure that that tutors are provided with the tools that they need to assist our students. And there's also training that is involved on the faculty side, specifically when they're working with embedded tutors. So many times, and this is not to badmouth faculty, but they hear about embedded tutoring, they hear about supplemental instruction, they say, this is great, I definitely want a tutor to be in my classroom. But past that, there might not be a whole lot of thought into how am I going to make use of this tutor? How am I going to make sure that the tutor is integrated into the classroom, that they feel welcome, that it's a proper sort of use of the tutor's time and of their skill. Managing requests that come from the higher up, right? Obviously, you know, coordinators report to someone else. A lot of the time it's administration or deans, you know, and making sure that, you know, we're trying our best to meet their requests for increased programs, for increasing our tutoring numbers, things of that sort. And finally, you know, balancing a budget or funding. And this directly impacts hiring and staffing. Sometimes, you know, we're trying to make something work with not too many dollars behind it. And then finally, just acting as continued support for tutors, students, and faculty and staff. This is under the challenge, and it's not a challenge in a negative sense, right? I think, you know, speaking for myself, I hate to speak for someone else, but I think Giselle would agree that, you know, we want to be there to support our tutors. We want them to feel like they can come to us with any challenge that they might be having. And for our students and our faculty and staff as well. But of course, these things take time, they take energy to do. So yeah, and of course, if you feel like we've left anything out, feel free to put it in the chat or go back to that Google Doc and add it. You know, that thing is, it's live, it's living, so feel free. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna move on to our next slide here.
Okay, so this next part of the presentation, we're going to be adding or providing solutions that we think will help mitigate some of these issues that were brought up. So each of these slides is going to present a solution. Our first solution is assessing tutor comfort and placing trust in their abilities to best help students in need. So this is for supervisors mostly, but I think tutors can also learn from this slide as well. So we want to allow tutors to tutor any subjects they show an interest in, sorry for that typo, following protocols, of course. So if you are interested in I know Chase is going to share an example of this, but if you're interested in a subject that you don't currently tutor, maybe you have taken a class in the past and you feel confident in it, let your supervisor know, and maybe that'll help out with providing more tutoring to more students. Tutors can model study skills in areas where they are less confident. So when students ask questions that are past the tutor's area of knowledge or comfort, the tutor can show the student what they would do as a student. So you might not know everything, but you at least know how to be a model student. So you can share that with the student when you're working with them. And lastly, we want to encourage tutors to be honest with students. So if you don't know the answer to a question, let the student know that you don't know it and proceed to help them by pointing them to additional resources. I know that some of the tutors at my center will help Google things. So they'll show the student how to Google a question. I think that that's underutilized. I think some students don't really know how to use Google sometimes, especially students who might have been out of school for longer. Showing them how to do a Google search can be a really effective tool if you're unsure of how to answer the questions they're asking you. And then Chase, did you want to share any examples that you've provided or that you've done at your college?
Yeah, definitely. So the example that I wanted to share that coincides with the slide here, it actually involves a student who came into our center seeking statistics tutoring in person. Unfortunately, this semester, we do not have any in-person statistics tutors working. They're all online. So the student was there wanting help, and unfortunately, we didn't have a tutor for them specifically. But we did have a tutor who tutors intermediate algebra and trigonometry who was present. So of course, one thing that I always emphasize is having a quick conversation with the tutor to make sure that we're not doing anything that's going to place them outside of their comfort zone. But after talking to the student a little bit more, I found out, yeah, they needed help because they're in their statistics course, but they needed help with some of the algebra that goes into statistics. We had the intermediate algebra tutor present, so I had a quick conversation with that tutor and kind of let him know the situation. This student coming in here for statistics, but I think it might be in the sort of realm where you could help. Do you feel comfortable doing this? The tutor said yes. I let the student know what the deal was, that he's not an approved statistics tutor, but I think he might be able to help. And if he can't, he'll let her know. And the student and the tutor, they worked together and they were actually able to get quite a bit done. And when the student moved to ask some questions that were a little bit more statistics based, then the tutor kind of showed the student what they did when they took a statistics course. They did some of the things that Giselle was talking about, sort of modeling that student behavior. And the student left happy. And the tutor was able to help the student. They felt good, and they felt like they didn't have to go outside of their comfort zone. They weren't kind of going out on a limb, providing the student with some sort of shaky assistance there. And that was an example of, something where sort of everyone is sort of left happy, and that's great. I'm glad we were able to help that student. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Giselle, is it okay for me to go to the next slide?
Yes, please.
Yeah, and Lindsay said clear communication, definitely. So another solution that we are thinking about here is valuing tutors who are competent and comfortable tutoring in more than one area or subject. So, tutors can utilize their many competencies, their knowledge to tutor students outside of their usual subjects. As coordinators or supervisors, training our tutors in just general tutoring methods that they can apply to different subjects or to different disciplines, rather than just focusing on really subject specific stuff, allows tutors to sort of transition between subjects with a little bit more confidence. And, when we do need to get to some more subject specific stuff, having instructors from those departments or those divisions come in and train tutors on those specific subjects when needed. And one thing that, at least like from a personal sort of standpoint, I've hired tutors. Like, for example, I hired a writing tutor who only tutored writing. But, you know, this was pre-pandemic. You know, being on the floor, he was able to sort of shadow and watch some of our statistics tutors and gained interest in the subject, ended up taking statistics, did pretty well in it, and then approached me and asked, hey, would it be okay if I added statistics tutoring to my roster? Of course, he had the recommendation from the faculty member, and it was easy. And some of our tutors, I think, don't know that you can do that, don't know that you can be hired maybe as a writing tutor, but through conversation with supervision or coordinators, you know, and with proper sort of recommendation, we can add on additional courses. And that is such a great thing, not only from the coordinator's perspective, because it allows us to be a little bit more flexible with scheduling, but you know, from a tutor's perspective too, because sometimes if you're looking for, you know, this is not a promise, but if you're looking for additional hours, sometimes it becomes a little bit easier to add additional hours because scheduling is sort of based off of need. And when tutors can fill in additional sort of areas of need, you know, it makes it a lot easier. Giselle, is there anything that you wanted to add here?
No, I'm good with the next slide.
Cool. Yeah, shout out to multi-subject tutors, but also shout out to our, you know, our tutors that do one thing really well as well.
Yes. All right, so our next solution is to develop a library of resources and materials that allow students to have common questions answered on their own time. So what does that mean? It means tutors and faculty can record videos and virtual workshops on topics that commonly come up during tutoring sessions. I know that at our college, the faculty record the videos. So me and the other faculty member I work with, we record all those videos, but I know that Chase might do something different, which he can share. But that's one way to reach out to students. Another is to provide worksheets and directed learning activities that students can access at any time. These can be handouts. That's something that we provide, is that on our website, students can get these things and can access them at any time. So that brings me to my next point, which is to create an easily accessible library of resources through Canvas so that students have access to all resources 24/7. Unfortunately, we can't provide tutors at all hours of the day, but these resources stand in when we can't provide those services. And then physical copies, if you are open, of resources can also be provided in person. I do want to say that one of our tutors did help us develop the library, so they were integral to getting all these resources, right? So they went through all the handouts, made sure they looked good, and we ended up publishing those for the students. So helping your coordinator in that way can be one great way to get involved in stuff outside of tutoring. And Chase, did you want to share an example?
Sure, just a quick example. You know, I'm thinking if this might have been represented on our first sort of discussion question. One of our math tutors noticed that so many of her sessions were eaten up, not by actually like working on math, but on calculator navigation. And she was having to repeat herself a lot, and she wasn't getting very far with the students. So she noticed the struggle, and she sort of came up with a series of calculator navigation videos, both graphing and scientific, that we could publish on our webpage, that we could send to students, who then could view on their own time and then come back to a session, maybe with questions, of course. But it allowed, you know, the tutor to reach, you know, however many students would want to watch this video, and also allowed her to be a little bit more effective with the students that she was currently working with, because she was able to provide them with a resource, a really helpful resource at that. So yeah, moving on to our next slide here, another solution, and perhaps this is a little bit more sort of coordinator or indirect support based, but you know, still I think could be applied to the tutoring side of things. But building relationships outside of the center with department or division chairs and faculty, really just building relationships on campus in general, I think can really help us when we're trying to provide services with limited resources. So, you know, for like a coordinator here, asking to present at departmental or division meetings instead of just sending out numerous emails, I think we all know what happens when we get sent a ton of emails. We end up not reading them. And, you know, a coordinator could do this, but a tutor could do this as well. Obviously, making sure that they are supported in doing so. promoting via all faculty or all campus emails is still a very good idea. I do that. I, reach out to ASO, and ASO will send out emails on our behalf as well, or promoting tutoring on our behalf. But, doing something that extends past just sending an email sometimes. When it's applicable, maybe inquire about, department or division faculty being given reassigned time to assist with the duties of the tutoring center, such as tutoring, or training tutors, supervising tutors, providing workshops. Sometimes faculty members can't meet their full load just by teaching classes. Sometimes classes get canceled. And it's a great opportunity to bring some of those faculty members into the center. And we have a brilliant mix of student tutors, of faculty that are providing tutoring services. And it really allows this really cool dialogue where everyone's learning from each other. And it allows faculty members to get a lot closer to tutoring, to tutors, and I think makes them a lot more willing to really go up to bat, to really promote and have buy-in in our centers. And when we're on site, this makes a little bit more sense, but offering space for instructors, most of the time that might be adjunct instructors because they might have a shared office, but full-time as well, offering space for them to hold their office hours in the center. That brings students into our space. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do in the tutoring center. It's, we have, when students come to us, we have them returning, but getting them in the doors in the first place is sometimes the biggest challenge. So that helps with, that challenge a little bit. And finally, tutors visiting faculty's classrooms virtually and in person to provide an overview of tutoring services. Maybe if it's an asynchronous online course, recording a quick video during their shift time when they're being paid to do so, of course. Just things that we can do creatively to, again, get the word out there and to reach a wider population of students. Giselle, is there anything that you wanted to add here before I move on?
No.
Great.
Okay, so our next solution is moving away from the strict embedded tutoring model to a more flexible tutoring on demand model. So this is, again, more for coordinators, but tutors can learn from this as well. So instead of relying on a more robust supplemental instruction model or embedded tutoring program, we can create a smaller but more accessible tutoring on demand or ad hoc program. So what is that? A tutor on demand or ad hoc model allows instructors to request tutors when they need the support for their course/students. So this is something that we did at PCC last year because we were asking to provide embedded tutors for a new course, a composition support course, and we didn't have enough tutors. So we said we can provide tutors on demand, and that will be the easiest way for us to get tutors in the classroom. This type of program would allow demand to be met while also offering embedded tutoring to courses that would otherwise not have access to an embedded tutor. So it's a way to make use of the resources you have while also being flexible and meeting the needs being asked of you to meet. Chase, did you want to share?
Sure. Yeah. I'm not necessarily going to share an example because it's pretty similar to you, but I think just like the theme of this slide is like, let's rethink the things that we are doing and not be so set in stone sometimes, like when it comes to a session, right, we might have it in our, and I think this kind of goes back to what Anna was talking about, right? We might have in our minds, like what we expect to have completed, like a student might come in with an essay draft, right? We might have in our minds, like we need to sort of cover, if not all, at least a decent portion of this draft. Well, what if the student doesn't really understand the prompt and we actually spend the whole time just talking about the prompt? That might feel for some people a little uncomfortable, like they didn't get anything done. But if we sort of think, sort of outside the rigidity of like, I need to produce this amount of like tangible work in this session with the student, I think it will allow for some actual, some real learning to occur. And I'm going to move us along because we're running out of time. So yeah, that I think what I just said kind of leads into this last slide of the solutions that Giselle and I came prepared with. Just like adjusting and redefining what success and what a successful tutoring program looks like. So, this might be on the sort of more coordinator side, but I think like from the tutor's perspective too, maybe it'd be more direct between like one tutor to the other, just resisting the urge to draw comparisons between your center and a center with more ample staffing, either at the sort of tutor level or at the sort of faculty staff coordinator level. This is something that I wrote, like, coming from like a personal sort of perspective. It can be so easy to say, like, why aren't we doing these things? Why don't we have as big of an embedded tutoring program as this school does? And just looking at the sort of successes and what is working, what you are doing with the resources that you do have, and sort of redefining online tutoring so it can complement in-person tutoring and be successful with the same number of staff. Again, trying things and maybe modifying them. And what I found that's really helpful is modifying them based off the feedback of students and tutors, the two people that are impacted the most, right? And not being so set in our ways. And then, just realizing that learning assistance tutoring is challenging, and leading tutors or being a tutor, coordinating schedules, either from, somebody like me, a director that's scheduling tutors, or from the tutor's perspective, someone that's balancing school and work, various services or modalities online and on site. And then just balancing like practical and logistical responsibilities takes time and effort. And like, if we're able to help, one student a day, right, that's better than nothing. I think, as long as we're trying our best and just acting with our students' best interests in mind and respecting and celebrating our tutors, we're on the road to success, right? Giselle, anything you wanted to add here?
No, I'm good.
Cool. So then it sort of brings us to our sort of reflection question, back to what I like the most, where we're all talking and it's not just Giselle and I talking. So I'll hand it over to Giselle.
All righty. So we do have 4 minutes, and then I know 2 of those, Crystal will be closing us out. But I do want to give you a quick few seconds, I guess, to quickly just fill out the reflection question. Of course, we can go over this more in the after hour disco. But the question is, are there any strategies or solutions that you have used on your campus that we did not mention? Oh, thank you, Crystal. And that you would like to share? If not, what is one creative solution or strategy you could use to ease your load while also meeting the learning assistant needs of your campus? So you can either answer one or the other. And again, we're doing this on the Google Doc again. So enter your response on the Google Doc if you'd like. Again, it's anonymous. And be sure to skip every bullet point so that you're not writing over someone else's thoughts. We'll give you like, I want to say like a minute to share, and then Chase will bring us all back together.
And then as people will probably have to sign off right as we get closer to 4, thank you so much to everyone that's attended. We'll return back to this question for those of you that can stay. But yeah, again, thank you so much. If you have any questions, Giselle and I provided our email addresses here, our names. But yeah.
Yeah, and I just if anybody needs to leave at 4, I totally understand. We'll continue the conversation until 4:30. But if anybody does need to leave at 4, I have put some links in the chat for you. The first link is if you'd be interested in facilitating one of these cool workshops that Chase and Giselle just facilitated today. We will support and help you every step of the way. So if you're interested in doing something like that, email me or click on that link and it'll walk you through the process of thinking through a topic. The second link that I put in the chat is to a feedback link. We need that for our funding and also to figure out how we can make these better in the future. So please give us a little bit of feedback. And also next week, we'll be talking about peer mentors, what they are and how they relate to tutoring, how we can learn from each other, how they're the same, how they're different. So if you want to learn a little bit more about the peer mentoring model, come on back next week at 3 o'clock. And all cool things will be waiting for you there. So that's enough for me. Get back to sharing. I'll see you soon.